Desmond. A few months ago, back in July, I received an email about a seminar that took place in Brno, and it was titled Kjark Squeltacht Sapiedvish Fidit, and what is it Weltacht in the 21st century? And the seminar was, I believe from what I've gathered, it was examining the state of Irish and the state of the Weltacht areas and the problems they're having. At around the same time, I was actually working on this paper and got some responses to a survey that I've put out to learners through the Philo-Celtic Society, to learners who are learning Irish in isolation because they don't have a group that they can go to. And going through those responses and reading their frustration and the problems they have, and just the sheer desire to be wanting to go and learn Irish, and just the two discrepancies that just struck me to be so ironic. So what's happening at the moment? 2006 census of Ireland states that 1.66 million people can speak Irish. And if you look a little bit closer at these figures, of these 1.6 million will claim to be speaking Irish, because the question was phrased a little bit open. Only 3.22% use Irish outside the school system, and a little bit over 70% of those who put their names down never actually use Irish at all. So the fact is that Irish is listed as definitely endangered on the UNESCO Atlas for Endangered Languages. So what's happening outside Ireland? When we mapped this information for the website we're working on, we found there's lots of groups actually all over the world in some quite unlikely places. And if you look at Australia, the numbers are small, and I've got some census figures here, but they're on a constant rise, so that's a plus. And that's a trend I believe you also see in the Sydney group. It's a slow rise, but it's been steadily going upwards, particularly since they've started advertising on the website. I also have some figures of the US, which I'm not quite sure, but 22,000 people put their names down in the American Community Survey of 2006 to 2008 as speakers of Irish Gaelic under the category detailed languages spoken at home. So with people all over the world sort of seem to be interested in taking up Irish, we are now facing an interesting challenge, which is the one of the isolated learner. The distribution of classes is still sort of a little bit haphazard, and it's so if you decide to learn German or Spanish, there should be a group sort of close by within 20-30 kilometers, but with Irish there could be one or two in the immediate vicinity, or you just have nowhere to go to. We do see this at winter schools and summer schools every year. There will be 2 or 3 people turn up and live in quite far-flung places, which we call beyond the black stump in Australia. So how can we help these people and cater to their needs, and how can we add potential speakers to a pool of actual speakers or learners? If you've seen the short film Yumi's Anandom, you would have seen a Chinese man who was a little bit of an accidental speaker and learner, so he got into Irish a little bit by accident, but stories like that constantly emerge. There's Seamus Fianna, an Irish-Korean man who was in the US Army. If you heard him speak on the radio, he speaks in a beautiful Donegal accent. I watched the show on Tichi Kara that begins with a young African man walking down the street. The opening words is Mishitura Arutura, Tommy Mohoni Mo Ferste. There's a symbol. So it's interesting. So we're seeing quite a colourful, eclectic bunch, if you like. So again, in Sydney, we have that sort of demographics too. We have Irish people, we have 2nd and 3rd generation Irish, but we also have a lady from Hong Kong. We have a young Sri Lankan, I asked him to get this right, a Sri Lankan born South Indian man, the German contingent being myself and my daughter. So if you then look at the demographics, we need to try to understand the motivation why people are taking up Irish and even over, learning another language that could be, in that sense, it's a bit controversial, that could be advantageous when traveling. Or to take up a language because you're driven by an economic need, by your career development. Why are people learning a language and undertake this journey in isolation and consider it sort of hardship and problems? A language that is actually quite elusive and that it seems is very rare, and you get to speak so rarely, really only, when you go to these winter schools or summer schools, or that's even hard to catch when you do get a chance to go to the Quotach, as I found last year. The Global Irish Learning Community has without a doubt people who are seeking social identity. It's a modern concept of the personal self. There's a lot of research going in how your personal self is actually being influenced by emerging technology, and we see this a lot in people taking on different sort of games in an online gaming sort of world. I believe a large percentage of these people have a desire to learn this language with a motivation of cultural repatriation, because there's sort of second or third generation Irish, or even some sort of, for lack of a better word, cultural refuge. So it's similar to why you would be getting into online gaming.
Games playing or betting?
What's that?
Gaming.
Gaming.
Games playing.
Games playing. Not betting. No. Okay. So here we go. It gets a star subject. So, as education systems are being reformed all over the world, and online learning, as well as blended learning, which is a mix of the both, are more and more adopted by corporate, government, and academic institutions, I'm predicting that this will be a successful avenue for the spread of Irish. I would even say that the future of Irish is even other more niche languages, which we also heard of this morning, Manx and Cornish perhaps, would depend on communities that meet and exist through technology. And it's a way for us to be able to expand the target language beyond anywhere that we could probably have done in a classroom situation. So by doing so, we are not just including those isolated learners that we just looked at, whatever their motivation may be, but at the same time we can also really appeal to the young, the Gen Y, who as digital natives, and if you have a teenage child, you can note they already merge their physical life with social networking effortlessly. This is absolutely it's all one thing to these kids these days. We as today's educators need to become digital immigrants, if we haven't already done so, and we need to adjust our ways of delivering our teaching. And yet, if that sounds a bit scary, even we pre-digital natives have actually all been taught technology assisted. We all recognize this. It's the 60s, and cognitive psychology is dominant. It's when the education shift went from norm reference to criterion-based testing, and there was a time when a lot of instructional materials were developed. I'm not sure all the younger ones, you might remember the videos, the classroom videos, so that was a big trend, and that was the time when Sesame Street started in the 1960s. Maybe we need to go back a little bit further now for some of you, and yeah, that's right. So actually now we move forward a little bit. There's Whale Lynn. They were early adopters of the technology in a wider sense. If we come back to our subject of Irish, they were kind enough to send me those photos. And they were set up to reach populations beyond the Quotach borders. So that idea actually was in their heads back in the time. And back in '75, they produced a home learning course called Teach Yourself Irish. That's a joint venture with LinguaFound. So this is the 1970s. Oh, the photo looks older. If you go back another 100 years, Antara Owen O'Grony, he was born in 1863, which makes him pre-digital anything. He released a course, Simple Lessons in Ireland. They were run in the weekly Freeman, and he was quoted to he strove to keep the Irish language spoken in Ireland. Had he had any ideas of the possibilities we have today and the borderless really spread in the distribution of knowledge, he probably would have done away with the in Ireland bit and just kept the Irish language spoken with the aim, and I'm sure he would have probably gone online. But any of those solutions or those courses we just looked at, they address the need to go outside the classroom. But what, in my opinion, they were still a little bit limited in their delivery and effectiveness. If you look at the science of second language acquisition, there's a number of factors that determine the success of learning. So there's learner internal factors such as the ability to retain vocabulary, but there are external factors that we need to look at when we assess the effectiveness of e-learning. So we have teaching methodologies, that sort of pedagogical stuff. Interestingly, one of the, it's actually strays with the subject, but one of the factors is the community attitude towards the language and its speakers, and I think there's a paper in this. I'd like to see this as a paper presented by someone. Another factor is interaction, use of target language, as well as group dynamic. The need to, the use of target language, that has already been recognized and is facilitated by a number of sites. We have lots of blog sites, there are people, all levels of Irish, writing about personal matters or political commentary. So we get a whole bunch of those. Our own Era, just by its pure subtag, taking Irish outside the classroom, that's what we try to do. Just offering a range of activities to get learners to use what Irish they have through, participating in crazy caption competitions and that sort of thing. Bludder.com is it's more a forum-based site, even though they do have the tag of blogging in there. They're divided into Blood and the Nog, Blood and the Tinas, Blood and Munchery. No surprise, the Blood and the Nog is the busiest one, so they set a topic and kids can post, to what's your favorite sport, etc., etc. So use of target language, we have quite a range of sites out there. In my mind though, going back to group dynamic, that is actually a much neglected yet critical ingredient when you offer any subject online, but particularly when you try to teach a language, and particularly Irish, it's something that would thrive in a group, in a community setting. The old proverb in Irish, "Scar failure Warren Medina," that really sums up what I'm trying to say here. And I found a cartoon here with our emu, and he's going back to school and says it's not fun, and he's finding it hard to make friends, and he says I feel sort of isolated too. And no learner should feel like this, no matter what their subject or the method of learning, and online or anywhere really. In the example of Irish language, the language acquisition and the motivations for learners I mentioned just a while ago, we particularly need to give this aspect a lot more attention than anyone is currently doing, any side. Learners who are motivated by social identity seeking, they will look for recognition in a community. I photoshopped this together. I want to be recognized as a native speaker. Okay, so further they will seek to share their values and the interests of like-minded people. More than, for instance, a group of people who is learning English in order to, pass the engineering exam, or French in order to go to France for an au pair course. What are the advantages of learning, and what did the survey reveal that I put out? So it's on demand. It's there. You can take up a subject anywhere, anything, anytime. It's a fast and flexible environment to change, much more than a printed textbook. I find particularly, so if you have subjects that are, whatever's currently happening, I'm signed up to some blog site, and they constantly talk about there's been a hurricane, so you get a whole bunch of words to do with hurricane. So it's very flexible and very up to date that way. Bio is a fantastic example for people constantly writing about, modern sort of subjects.